Coming up is a panel discussion where I'll be calling up three co-panelists with me. And since I'm a journalist and I have a bad habit of asking questions, I will be putting them through some of, a few of my questions, perhaps more from the perspective of, while we know how to do it and how to go about it, let's start looking at it from a perspective of when do you plan, when you see that you need to do it, how you actually start on a very, very higher level, 30,000 feet up the air, and then from there start to work towards the ground zero, and how you go through the entire journey of making sure that you are managing it big, you are getting your data to give you as much as profit as it can. To join me on the stage first, let me invite Arun Dhal. He's the head of Decision Support System, the Enterprise Data Warehouse and Business Intelligence Division of Reliance. My colleagues, if you can just step over there so that you can be wired up before you're called up. Arun has more than 23 years of experience, of which the last 15 years have been with BI. His experience spans across manufacturing, telecommunications, financial services, and retail. He was instrumental in initiating and deploying 2 large-scale decision support systems in Reliance's telecom and retail business. Joining Arun on the stage will be Tony Young, the CIO and Senior VP of Informatica, and Soumendra Mohanty, the partner and head of BI practice of Accenture. Can I request, Soumendra, if you can just step up and maybe we can wire you up so that you can come up on the stage and join me? Soumendra, can you just help us out there? Gentlemen, take the seat. Perhaps for the first time in my life, I'll be hidden behind something. So I'll be sitting over there, and while I might not be visible to this part of the hall, I'm assuming that I'll be audible enough, and perhaps feeling very great that I'm hidden behind something. Managed to hide. Okay, Arun sir. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking our time again, and perhaps Tony and Soumendra, your questions were due, which I kind of shortchanged you after your discussions or your presentation was over. Arun sir, thank you so much for joining us on the panel as well, bringing in your insights. Tony, if I can begin with you. We had been hearing what is big data and the definition of it, what to do with it, how to go about understanding it, where it is applying, etc. But if I'm looking at, since you are the CIO of Informatica, you are looking at it from a consumption perspective as well. You are looking at end-to-end from the product which is being developed and all the way it's going to be practically deployed, rubber meeting the road. From your perspective, if I can straight jump into from, say, a CIO or delegates of the CIO's office perspective, what are the typical stumbling blocks or the pitfalls generally the IT teams would start to see when they actually start looking how to go about doing this big data project? What are the typical stumbling blocks?
Okay. So I think first of all is understanding the skills that are required to be successful. So when you just take Informatica aside, because Informatica essentially automates the building and abstracts a lot of the complexities away from if you're using a Hadoop environment. I think the first thing that's a big challenge is the fact that if you were going to do it natively and you were going to have programmers, these are very specialized people. And I've talked to lots of CIOs about this, and they said, I have a couple hundred Java programmers, but I can only find 5 people that actually qualify to do what I want to do. So I think there's a real talent shortage, and it doesn't mean that I can just train someone up and they can do it. These are very specialized people. These are the top guys. So I think that's one of the big challenges that exists in the marketplace today. And I think the other one is I'd come back to, even if you were going to be successful in analytics, there's some basic things that you needed to do. And it still comes back to people, process, and technology. And big data, if you consider embarking on that journey, having good practices around people and process are also still vitally important. You You've got to have data quality, you've got to have data governance. All these things go hand in hand. And if somebody said to me once, big data means big data quality problems.
Yeah.
So you have to think of it holistically. It's not just, I have a Hadoop cluster, and I have some smart guys, and we're going to throw some things together, and it's going to work. That's not the way to approach it.
Yeah, yeah. And so your perspective from, absolute hands-on, what are the typical stumbling blocks you would have seen if you would have embarked on such a project?
Yeah, I will talk more from my experience perspective.
Sure.
So I agree with Tony where he says that people, process, technology, definitely will face challenges there. And obviously, apart from that, in data capture, curation, storage, search, analyze, share, visualization, analysis, each of these areas will have different challenges. But what I have done is, I was just thinking about it, from the big data perspective, and then I jotted down 4 things, which were very clearly coming down as the stumbling block. The first thing is that there are too many assumptions about big data. Everybody thinks about big data differently. Most of the people think that if the data volume becomes bigger, then that's the only problem. And to some extent that is correct. And then in today's presentations, answered some of the questions saying volume, variety, velocity, and then you also talk about the veracity aspect, which is very important. So people think about this can be utilized in many ways. Many people think that that data is the answer to many questions. Probably it's not. Too much of data, probably too much of confusion. Right? You have to find out what really is important. So asking the right questions, what exactly we are trying to do is very, very important, rather than straight away starting to address the big data problem. We have to contextualize and see what exactly is relevant for us, what exactly we can do it. If it is about social data, how it is relevant. And then there are other problems related to privacy, and then compliance perspectives. How exactly, this data should not be visible to everybody, and then in some of the presentations that had been addressed. But even if you want to get data from social media, like Facebook, Twitter, more and more people are now, kind of encrypting. It's not easy. Even extracting that data, getting to that level that you get the Rukmini data is not that easy. For all of you, I know, it sounds that way, but it's not that easy that you will get that data very, very easily, because they also restrict you. If you are trying to get data from more than, X numbers or X percentage, you're not allowed. So that's another problem. And then you come to the technology side, storage and processing itself is a big problem when you're talking of bringing so much of data together. And it has to do with the processing of large data sets. And why we are trying to process large data sets is because we are trying to bring more information and trying to attach to the customers. If you take the customer as an example, where we have as an organization the transaction data, and you are trying to get the other interaction data, which typically is social, where we are trying to bring all of those data. We are saying that put it all together, and instead of going against the smaller sets of data, fire a query which goes against the entire data for a long period, and you get some value out of it. So for that, you need different kind of tool sets.
Yeah.
The traditional systems might not work. And then Tony also touched upon the 4th subject, which was about availability of the skills. So there are different kind of skills which are now coming out, and then that's again a problem, getting all of those people on board, and then aligning it with your corporate objectives, training them, maintaining them. Is another problem. So
Perfect.
These are some, 4 in a nutshell, which I think are the major stumbling blocks.
You both are correct. The reference point of the data and of it is very valid, and you raise a valid point on the skill sets as well. While I'll come back to pick your brains on the skill sets, so Soumendra, if I can, ask you, and perhaps from the perspective that if we are looking at a brick, let's step back and look at a wall at least. And while we are talking about big data, while we're talking about how it's useful, what should be done, how to go about doing it, and we heard about the feasibility and all the challenges, etc. What about the basics, the fundamentals attached to data itself? What Tony and Arun raised about the concerns on the data feasibility itself, the quality of data itself. Do you see organizations largely struggling with the basic aspect of maintaining the data quality when they are trying to embark on such a project? And if there are, then how do you actually go about alleviating those pain points?
Absolutely. I think, so I'll throw out a new terminology, right? We have heard about data warehousing, BI, reporting, those solutions. We have not heard about something called data lake. Yeah. And there is a reason behind that, right? This is getting popularized as I'm talking here. But the key aspect there is, and I agree with you, in a big data scenario, it is the use case that drives the approach, right? It is not the other way around where, well, I've got money, I've got a infrastructure, a platform ready, maybe I have found 20 guys who know this stuff. Now let's go and do some big data. It is not that. I think it is the reverse way of what is the use case you're trying to solve, and that defines how would you approach, right? In today's world, we have been, again, struggling for many, many years to get the ideal MDM implementation, right? If you can tell me, yes, we have done it, let's have a chat. Data quality, right? We don't even understand, given the enterprise data, forget the outside the world, given the enterprise data, who is this customer? We have not figured out that, yeah? So obviously, with addition of all of these other interactions data and the context behind that, the relationships it extends, it is going to be a bigger problem, yeah? The basics hence need to be that what kind of data you're dealing with, what kind of problems you're trying to solve. In my earlier session, I talked about the 4 V's, but I've not seen a client who has a problem in all the 4 V's. Right? At best, it could be 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 at best. Yeah. So you have to realize that it can't be all the 4 problems all coming at you together.
Yeah.
Right? And hence, the important thing around that is the basics around your approach, what exactly you're dealing with, what kind of data you're dealing with, the lineage, the data traceabilities. All those things need to be in place when you're dealing with these kind of situations. Secondly, I talked about in my session about a coexistence architecture. It is not either or. You cannot run your enterprise business on only depending on the big data platforms or big data offerings. You cannot, because there are too much sensitive data, too much of a enterprise-specific data that you don't want to put in the other platform, right? So it has to be a coexistence architecture, and that drives that how much of a quality aspect I need to focus here versus in the enterprise platforms. What would be my investments around these? What kind of a governance and a framework that I need to put in place? How do I exchange this data, right? So these are, again, I'm not preaching anything new. 10 years back and continuing, these are the basics that we think about when we do any data kind of a program.
Yeah.
So it still stays the same.
Sure, sure. Tony, from your experience, would you like to add something to it?
I wholeheartedly agree. So, first and foremost, it starts with the use case or asking somebody, what is the business problem we want to solve? Just because I can get access to all this information doesn't mean that I want to gather it. That to me would be a futile approach. So it has to be just like most things we do, and I agree. It's like we did things 10 years ago. It's just a lot of the same principles that exist today. We have different tooling, we have different names, but a lot of it stays the same.
Coming to the point what you had mentioned initially, and then Arun sir was also mentioning the skill sets. 3 of you are looking at skill set as a challenge, and while you were looking at it a different way, but you still agree that that is a challenge. If that's a challenge, then how can effectively, Arun sir, if I can ask you,
Sure.
how can effectively a CIO then start to look out to address this challenge? What are the new skill sets you would want in your team to come in, and what is it that you're looking for in people who are going to be managing this project for you to pick them up and get them on the ground?
Sure. See, first and foremost, as I said, it has to be about solving a business problem,
Yes.
and ultimately, this is where we are going towards. So skill sets are not going to change very much. The only thing is that the way we handle it is going to change. So there are these skill sets which are now at premium, and which is being talked about a lot, is data scientist, the data architect, and we have always associated the word big there now, the big data architect, the data engineering. The other, the scripting part, particularly the data visualization, The other thing which is now coming up and now becoming slowly, which is more important here is which is the role of an evangelist. So big data evangelist, if I may call that. So this needs to be talked to the businesses where we need to explain them what are the benefits of doing this. So if you are bringing the social data, how exactly it's going to enrich. So we talk about this in conferences. A lot of this is possible, but this has to be converted into value and then shown that this is what is important. So that is where this new role of the big data evangelist or big data analytics evangelist is going
Those
to
who
be
can
very
articulate the business in the business language what business understands.
Right, and then articulate it back to the IT folks, saying that these are the things which we are looking for, so that you solve that problem of the perspective or the which business problems we are going to solve. And then the other premium one I talked first was the data scientist.
Yep.
See, these data scientists is the new term, it's becoming more and more popular, and it's the conversion of primarily 3 skill sets. The definitely understanding of mathematics and statistics, understanding of artificial intelligence and natural language processing.
Yep.
They also need to understand IT to that extent. We are talking about scripting and obviously the business domain. So getting all of this in one person is not that easy.
Yes.
And there are institutions who are talking about some courses, they are certifying people, but then I have been trying it, and then it's really difficult to get all of these qualities in one person. So you have to figure out a methodology where you bring maybe people with multiple skill sets together, make a group, and then address it. The way I am looking at it today is that I am making focus groups. So I have made a focus group for analytics, where I'm bringing the statisticians, bringing the IT folks, bringing the business analysts, putting them together and trying to solve this problem.
Right.
So when they are interacting on a daily basis, they know exactly what is expected out of them. And then whatever is expected out of data scientists, a single entity, this group of 2 or 3 people are solving. Same thing, I'm doing it for Hadoop. When we talk about big data, automatically we start talking about Hadoop. And then Hadoop also, there are so many skill sets. And someone was touching in the morning saying that there are all of these names of these animals coming out, the technologies like pig, zookeeper, so many things which we are talking about. So out of that also you have to choose. So because all of these are open source. There's another problem of it is that if it is not supported, if there's not a bigger group which is talking about it, you might not be successful.
Yeah.
So you have to pick and choose which particular technologies are going to be apt for you. I mean, I'll just take a couple of names and saying that, for example, if you're talking about more of processing, natural language processing and all of those things, probably the pig is better. But if you're talking about more of SQL and more of a structured way of doing it, which most of the people are used to, probably Hive is the best way to go. And then definitely HBase is more important when you're doing more of lookups and when you are trying to solve the accounting problems and how many people have logged in and at what time and all of those kind of things. And then you have to basically bring them together and then say that exactly this is the business problem and connect it back to the data scientist. So these are the basic skill sets, and then these are the ways in which we are trying to handle them.
Okay. So Mahendra, you have been dealing with numerous projects, dealing with different organizations. What's your take on the skill sets part, and do you agree that, or what's your feedback if I say the data scientists actually should be coming outside IT?
Okay. Yeah, good. So first is, Accenture is there, right? So we have got all the people. Don't worry about that problem. We can solve it quickly. But jokes apart, I think what he said is very right. Yeah. Sometime back, when we started this data integration, data management, reporting, and all that stuff, we actually abstracted a lot of layers of the complexity of dealing with these things. And we prepared 4th generation, drag and drop, stuff, tools and all that. While that speeded up the development process or deployment processes, but it also, got into a lack of understanding of how to deal with these things. Now, fast forward to the situation today, I think we have gone back. So the scriptings and then all that.
Yeah.
The biggest thing about big data platform and the benefits and all the stuff that comes out with that is you're not moving data to methods or processes, right? Which is what we have been focusing on for the last 10 years.
Yes.
Instead, what we are now doing is let the data be wherever it is. Let me take my methods or the logics or algorithms or stuff into the data, wherever they are, which is basically the distributed area of computing, and hence you get the scale, and then you can take on more data. But that in turn has created a biggest concern with the skills and the people, right? The veterans of data warehousing and BI world, that now I have to learn Java programming. That's a big problem for me, right? Not only you have to learn the programming, but you have to also understand the context behind the data.
Right.
Right? If you don't understand the business context behind the data, the relationships, you really cannot do anything analysis oriented with the data. Right? The best you can do is put up some pie charts and then bar graphs and stuff, but that's not the problem you're trying to solve.
Right.
And hence, coming back to your question, so should it be with the IT or should it be outside the IT?
Mm-hmm.
What I have seen, and talking across the clients, like you said, it is a focus group, which is definitely outside of the IT,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you need skills where people understand how to write this thing, where is this data, how is the cluster oriented, and then stuff. It has to be more and more driven by business, right? Because again, going back to our earlier conversation, the problems you're trying to solve is not about integrating data or creating a data model, right, or a data mart. The problem you're trying to solve in this world, in this part of the big data scenario, is a particular hypothesis or a use case,
Yeah.
which is not, you cannot define that. It is very ad hoc in nature. It is, businesses will come after you. Yeah, that's why I think what we have seen and we're recommending to our clients is, it is a focus group outside of the IT, but heavily business-led and business-driven.
Yeah.
Of course, the skills, like you said, you need to know advanced data visualization, because the complexity of the data is such, you can't put it on a report.
Yeah.
Of course, you need analytics, predictive modeling, and those kind of capabilities. So people have to go back and now learn statistics and then all that stuff. And then you need to have a larger part of it is just understanding the data itself. So can't find it in one guy. Right? This is very new, very evolving today. Mm-hmm. You need to culture. You need to develop this kind of skills organically, right? Getting all these people together. And we are also doing the same thing, because you can't find these guys in the market. Right? Anybody knows these three skills here? Please raise your hands and let's talk outside. I mean, it's very rare, very challenging. Yeah. So you have to run programs, big data academies, certifications and whatnot. But summarizing, it is a business-driven, business-led, but a very focused group where you are bringing in these three different skills together. And definitely outside of the IT, because you need agility, you need people to go and ask some tough questions to the data, and you need to develop those hypotheses.
Yep. I've heard of campus recruitment. That was instant recruitment, what you were trying to attempt. With this, I'll open it up to the audience. The mics are around. Please raise your hands. We'll get you the mic.
That's not 100% data protection, is it? Somebody can still, I guess, copy out.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think it's 100% data protection, because there are people who still have access to data. You can print reports. You can. I mean, we run data. So when I think of my my data security program, we look at intrusion protection, but intrusion protection just isn't just electronic. It's also physical protection. We're going to have to look at reports that people put on the desk. Nothing is foolproof. And I will make a blanket statement. When it comes to security, all of you have holes, okay? So I think what we try to do when it comes to security approaches, we look at what I would call defense in depth. Defense in depth means you're going to put multiple layers in place. And hopefully, these are multiple filters which you would use to catch things. So if you think that you're going to choose one set of tooling or one approach to solve your security needs, I think you'll be mistaken.
But just in case somebody attempts that, could you use that data masking tool to, even if somebody tries to copy it out, it would go as masked data or something like that?
I think you'd have to ask the experts.
Actually, I'll try to answer that. See, what happens here is that the data masking or data security is not only, it's a smaller piece. It has to again go back and combine with the entire information security piece, right? How this data is masked, how you have to stop it from going out, what are the kind of policies, what are the kind of processes you are going to implement. It has to be, in the way of thinking. So see, the way organizations adopt it, the way it is implemented, as Tony said, that it is very, very difficult to implement something which is 100% foolproof. So it has to be around, the awareness, the way we explain it to the people. We have to trust people as well, like everybody is not trying to steal it away. But at the same time, we have to implement all of those processes which are possible, which we know that. And then even if somebody, fires a query, prints a report, then we can definitely, make provisions where this cannot be copied into a hard disk. It cannot be copied. It cannot be sent out. You can do all of those kind of things. So that's the reason I was saying it has to be part of the entire information security discussion, and it's a big discussion. But I agree with you that, it is not a foolproof thing. It's very, very difficult.
And just one more thing, if you don't mind. Can it mask data in backend ERP applications also? Because Mr. Somnath mentioned that depends on where you define your policy, at the network level or application level. So let's say in SAP, if I want...
SAP also is using databases at the end, right? Whether at this point of time, they're using Oracle or Informatics earlier they were using. Now we'll go to HANA. So all of those things are happening. So at the database level, you can still encrypt the data. You can still mask it. So you can write the programs where it's not easier for people to extract. But again, encryption, decryption, both can be written, right? So there are some people who will always have access. So I can say that you can make it 98% foolproof. But there will still be those 2% chances where somebody can read it.
I'm sure the technicalities, Somnath, Prashant, and Pradeep, they can actually address it far better. So I'm sure the guys are around, so they'll catch you up. So don't worry about that. Please do so. We had a question somewhere over there as well. Yeah.
Product.
Whoops, the mic.
There are certain catalogs which are available in internet. Okay, product catalogs like bearing and all that. So there is, in these catalogs, information like specifications or certain attributes are available. So how we can extract those relevant attributes in MDM module and use for our maybe codification system. So that kind of something functionality is available or it is in the evaluation phase.
Anyone specific you would want to raise a question to?
Maybe Mr. Mohanty is from Accenture.
Okay. Are you referring to a specific offering from Informatica, or this is an in general question?
It's in general.
Okay, so that's where I'm good at. Thank you. No, so a lot of it is about, how would you implement a document-oriented databases? Because if you look at the product catalogs, there is a picture. There are specifications out there. There are seasonality related information out there and all that. If I take that and I want to put it on a database or on a table, it's extremely difficult because then you have to parse it and break it apart to 5 different things. Yeah? And then you have to maintain the relationships related to which catalog these are referring to. And if you look at e-commerce channels and tons of these offerings, there are thousands and thousands of such catalogs floating around. So in that situation, what you need to do, we have to turn to our new friend now, big data platforms, and look for a document-oriented database, right? So MongoDB is very popular around that. What it does is it takes in it as a single object, right? The entire catalog as a single object. It associates certain identifications around it. It points out that what is inside it, pictures, and then there are cases where the catalog itself has do-it-yourself kind of video embedded, right? So the richness of the media is also involved. So the database takes care of all these different attributes related to that. And then you need to, once you get that, then you need to figure out how do I use it, right? For what purpose and then all that. But those are some of the implementations that we are working out with some of our clients, and I see a purpose behind that. If you look back to the traditional technologies, this is nothing new. Rather, I would say it is a specialization of that. We had a very popular data type called blob. right? And we're very happy those days. Oh, now I've got something where I can just dump in anything there, right? But internally, how it is stored, how it is accessed, there is a lot of compression technologies you have to put in there. So it was a performance drag, scalability issues, and all that, right? Which is, with this new generation of databases, again, a lot of those are open source. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt and then be prepared for risk management. But some of these new guys have specializing in some of those areas, right? I think in the example on MDM from Naik, Mr. Naik, and then Mrs. Naik, you saw some linkages, right? So there are even from product catalogs you can derive that, and you can link things together through a very specialized database called GraphDBs, right? So there are various such things which, from a architecture and approaches, you can adopt. Yeah.
I didn't necessarily catch the entire question, but if it was around multi-channels, e-commerce, the category that you will find a lot of people engage in today is a category called PIM, Product Information Management. And the goal of PIM is to do exactly what you are talking about. It's I have multiple channels. I might have an e-commerce channel. I may have a brick and mortar channel. I may have another channel, and it's the ability to work across multi-channel, multi-catalog, and in e-commerce situations, and make everything work seamlessly together. So I think that, I personally wouldn't recommend trying to solve the problem hand coding that. It would be like saying I want to go out and hand code my ERP and not buy something else. It's a similar type of situation where there's things that are available for you.
Since we're sitting pretty right between them and the lunch, so I would recommend that let's not agitate it further. I would like you gentlemen to wrap it up quickly for me, and one single question I had, and if you can help me with the answer, I'm sure must be crossing their minds as well. Typically, when we look at IT and organizations, there is something that they need to maintain day in, day out. The infrastructure and everything else around it needs to be maintained any which way. And then there are expectations of them to actually go about and start figuring out how they're going to help business find the true value of that data, maximizing the returns on it as well. How best they can balance it, how best they can actually go about figuring out that both of these important functions can find the right spotlight, if you will. Tony, if I can begin with you.
I'll defer.
Should I come back to you or not?
Come back.
Okay, I'll come back to you. So
okay. I think, and it is a openly kept secret, if you may. Over the last decade or so, we have been spending, clients and then SI partners like us, alliance partners and the products. Everybody for the last 10 years or maybe more than that have been investing a lot of amount of money and energy and innovation on building the systems, right? Data warehouses or BIs or self-service BI models, whichever way it is. By doing that over the last 15, 20 years, I'm of a personal opinion that they have something, right? It is not that a client will say, well, I don't have anything on data. Then the business will not run, right? So to your point, those scenarios have become business as usual today. You have invested, you have got something. Yes, there are data quality issues. Yes, there are reporting issues and then this, that issues. But it is there. It is keeping the lights on. You're running your business on that. What we need to look from now onwards is getting the value out of those investments.
Yep.
And hence, obviously, if you look from a people, process, technology perspective, you will have to have two separate teams, right, or two separate approaches. And people focusing on value, which is not, again, IT-led, it has to be business-led.
Yes.
And then you have got processes and then outsourcing partners and everybody else who is just going to keep your lights on.
Yeah.
And that the balance is extremely important. If you don't do that, again, I can sell many things by fear, right? which is you will be soon become a dinosaur. You will be left on the boat.
Okay. Arun sir.
In my journey, I have learned two words, and they're becoming more and more important the way all of those technologies and complexities are coming up. That's integration and collaboration. Right? See, this is a debate which will go on. Different people will have different views, how exactly it has to be done. I firmly believe that IT will have to invest time in understanding business, not just shying away from this and saying that let this be driven by business, because business will never have the, that kind of understanding of the IT systems and capabilities of what IT can deliver to actually go and ask you all of those questions.
Yeah.
What sitting in IT we have to do is we have to understand, we have to wear their shoes and understand what is it that is bothering them. And that is where the collaboration comes into play. I mean, the way I look at it is, for me, the business analyst, or so to say, that the functional person in the IT domain, which understands business, is very important.
Yeah.
They have to liaison with the business, understand their requirements, articulate their requirements back to the IT folks, and then, integrate technology with this.
Right.
So that's the approach which I think will work.
Okay. Tony, now I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Closing words.
So I think why I struggled with the question was because to me this is a philosophical question. And because I mentioned earlier, and I hear people say, well, this is IT, this is the business. If anybody in my group were to say, oh, I'm IT and they're the business, I would say, then this is probably not a good fit for you, because you are the business.
Yes.
But that's our philosophy.
Correct.
Your organization may have a very different approach to IT, but I still come back and say you have to think about what is your strategy of IT. What are you here for? Is your job to turn a crank? I would outsource it. I don't think that's not what's important. I don't believe that's what we're here to do. I believe we're here to add value, because if somebody else can do it better than I can do it, they should do it, not me. It's what's core for you versus what's contextual. So I really believe what's valuable is the folks that sit in IT as business people have the ability to work with the business hand in hand. Whether a data scientist sits in IT, whether they sit in the business, I have to say personally, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
What matters to me is that we actually get the right answer. And what matters to me is that we as an organization work together. So for me, that's my personal philosophy. That's why I say, and everybody may have a different approach or a different feeling about it.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your insights. I'm sure would have been wonderful enough for the audience as well. Gentlemen around, so you might want to raise your question once we are through with this a little later. Thank you so much. A big round of applause, please. Thank you.